What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. We are back home and we're converting the CRX to Obd1. Let's cover some basics though. What we're going to be doing today is building an engine harness. So what we're going to start with is a multi-point fuel injection Obd1 harness, which we have right here. What we're going to be doing today is building an engine harness to convert the Obd1 EF chassis to run an Obd1 block on an Obd1 ECU. Just to get started, let's clear up what we're going to be working with. You're going to need a base Obd1 multi-point fuel injection harness. This comes out of an SI or an HF CRX, any multi-point model EF, so SI hatches, EX sedans, LX sedans, I don't know. But you need your multi-point fuel injection harness. If you are not multi-point, you need to convert your dual point harness to multi-point and then proceed from there. My bad, guys. So I'm editing the video and I realized that I forgot one important detail. I was honestly thinking about putting a materials list at the beginning of the video, but it's right here. I'm sorry this is a mess. It's a mess. It's half an hour long. Materials. Obd1 multi-point harness, uncut. Most of an Obd1 harness. Mainly you're gonna want the fuel injector ground off plug, the fuel injectors, the DZI plugs, the alternator plugs if you choose to run Obd1. We are not running Obd1 alternator, we're running Obd0, so skip that. The 4-wire O2 sensor plug, and then the VTEC solenoid plugs. So if you have all of those wires cut out of the Obd1 harness, you're good, proceed. If not, go to the junkyard, find it. All right, guys, so there's gonna be 5 things that we need to modify on our Obd1 harness in order to use it on an Obd1 application. First, we're gonna delete our resistor box, and we're going to run some new wires through the harness that are basically going to be spliced together. We're actually going to be using the Obd1 ground off plug, which is just a much cleaner way of splicing a bunch of wires together. Second thing, we're going to remove our Obd0 fuel injectors and we're going to wire in Obd1 fuel injectors. Third thing, we're going to modify our distributor plugs. These are currently Obd0 plugs. These need to be Obd1. There's 2 ways we could go about this. We could use jumper harnesses. You're gonna have 2. I only have 1 because I lost 1, but it doesn't matter. And basically the idea is one side is Obd0 and then the other side is Obd1. This side goes into your Obd0 harness. This side goes into your Obd1 DZI. We're not gonna be running these. Instead, we're gonna be depinning these plugs and repinning them into the Obd1 DZI plugs. Fourth thing, you're gonna remove your single wire O2 and you're gonna wire in a 4-wire O2 plug. And then the final thing, which is optional, is VTEC. So let's talk about the resistor box and what that does. Basically, your fuel injectors on Obd0 and Obd1 are gonna be 4 wires. You're gonna have a blue, yellow, brown, and then you're gonna have a solid red wire. Next to those wires on Obd0 is going to be a red and black wire. And this red and black wire is going to run to your resistor box. What we're going to be doing, the way Obd1 works, is you have all the same color wires, but you have a yellow and black wire instead of a red and black wire. And that wire runs to the same location, but instead of a resistor box, there's a plug that when you put the cap on it, the cap grounds all of the pins together, and that's all it is. So we're going to be replacing these 2 things. The ground off plug also is going to include more than just the fuel injectors, so you are going to have extra wires. The only extra wires we're going to be running though is our 4-wire O2 sensor also needs to be grounded here. And then let's talk about the 4-wire heated O2 sensor. That's what's used on Obd1. Basically, you're going to have a solid white wire. That is your actual O2 sensor signal, same as your regular O2 sensor. You're going to have a green wire, which is ground, I ground that to the ECU ground. I just spliced it in there. Third wire is your heated O2 circuit. And then the fourth wire will be a yellow and black wire, which will be traced all the way back here to your ground off plug. Having said that, having covered the basics, let's get started. First thing we're gonna do is fuel injectors and resistor box. All right, fam, so we are learning together right now. So this is the Obd1 resistor box with the shock tower plug. Basically remove all of the stuff, like all the electric tape and the little crinkle, and you will find these 4 red and black wires going into the plug that plugs into the resistor box, and then you will have 1 yellow and black wire which is pinned into that plug. Depin that. I depinned it from right here. All you have to do to depin is take a depinning tool such as this one that Leo made right now. Those green tabs, lift one up, pull wire out, and then wire comes out. So once you get this wire, our resistor circuit is pretty much completely removed from our Obd1 harness. Let's move on to our Obd1 harness. Confirm that all of your colors are the same. We're gonna have brown, red, light blue, and yellow as injectors 1 through 4, and those are going to be connected to a yellow and black wire. So this is the same exact setup as the Obd1 harness. The only difference is that all these yellow and black wires are being spliced together. So on the Obd1 harness, you're going to have the same colors: red, light blue, yellow, and then I don't know where brown went, but brown is somewhere. Where's brown?
I'm brown.
But you're gonna have the same exact wires coming from your Obd1 harness, except you're gonna have a red and black stripe wire, and that wire, if you trace it, is gonna go all the way to this plug. This is your resistor box plug. I already depinned that one wire that I told you to depin in the last clip. You're gonna find a similar thing on this harness, on your Obd1 harness. Trace all of these yellow and black wires all the way until you find a clip that looks like this. This is going to be your ground off plug. It basically just splices your wires together, but we're looking for that one wire that plugs into the main harness, just like we just depinned from the green plug, doing the same exact thing, and then we're going to basically switch them over. So from our Obd1 harness, we're going to cut out all of our Obd1 injectors and cut the colored wires short. You don't have to cut any of the red wires, because the red wires all just go to the resistor box and they will come out as a single little sub harness. So that's basically our resistor circuit removed from the Obd1 harness. And all we have left on the Obd1 harness in terms of fuel injection is our 4 injector wires. Remember, brown, light blue, red, yellow, possibly in that order. I need to double check. And then this is the wire that was pinned into the resistor box. So at the end of this plug, this is the solid plug on your Obd1 harness. You're gonna have a plug that goes up against the shock tower, and it just has this cap on it. This is actually the plug we are going to be running. We're basically switching out our resistor box for this plug. And all of our resistor wires on our fuel injectors, all of our resistor wires, these yellow and black stripe wires, these will actually be hardwired into this plug. The wire we depinned from the Obd1 plug is the wire that's going to be repinned in here. As you can see, they are literally the same exact wires. And that will basically complete our fuel injection conversion. I hope that made sense. Basically, Obd1 plugs for the shock tower, Obd1 resistor plug, Obd1 injectors. I'm going to wire all this stuff up, and then I will show you guys what it looks like, and you will probably understand then. There you go. And then we can depin these, and our resistor plug is free. We have our Obd1 shock tower plug and our Obd1 resistor plug. So remember that plug that wire that we depinned earlier? Basically, we're going to take the Obd1 wire and stick it into the Obd1 location. Should be as simple as goes in like that. And there you go. we're wired in. So now these are going, I'm going to wire these guys, I'm going to wire these ends into each injector, and then wire each injector back into the Obd1 harness, and we will be done with this portion. And then at this point, once we have all of our wires pinned in, we're going to replace this white cap like that. And if you look here, this is the plug. It connects all of the wires together. Every wire that goes into this plug basically just gets spliced together. So it's just a cleaner way of splicing all of our wires together in its factory. And that's why we're doing it this way. And clean that up, and you're done. All right, fam, so we got that finished, and I hope now you guys can understand what I meant. So, yellow wire, blue wire, red wire, brown wire, all 4 injectors, the wires are running to this Obd1 plug, right? And then the ground wire, yellow and black, yellow and black, yellow and black, yellow and black, because we are now Obd1 running to this Obd1 resistor plug. And as I showed you guys, all this plug does is this cap right here connects every single wire. That's all it does. If you were doing a resistor box delete Obd1 conversion on your EF, most of the write-ups will tell you literally just cap all of those wires together. This is just a much cleaner, much more OEM looking way of doing it.
Popped up on my email.
Our ECU will be able to properly communicate with the fuel injector. We have our resistor boxes right here, which we will not be running anymore. In fact, we're probably going to be running that in my car. But this fuel injector conversion is complete. Let's move on to the rest of the block. We need to get basically every single sensor wired in and plugged in. All right, you guys. So next thing we're going to be adding to this Obd1 harness that we're making is our 4-wire O2 sensor. So here we have our 4-wire O2 sensor from an Obd1 Civic. And then here is the plug that it plugs into on our harness. And we're going to have 4 wires here. I believe we're going to have to add 2 wires to the stock harness. 1 wire, I know for sure, is actually going to get pinned into our little resistor box. So let's start by stripping this side of the harness and figuring out where these wires go.
Like daughter or their son or their like parents and shit. As like,
Okay guys, so because I depinned this wiring harness and I didn't just cut it up like a lot of people would have done, this pin is actually still intact. So we don't have to do any kind of soldering for this wire. This wire will plug directly into our little resistor box over there. Let's keep tracking down these other 3. All right guys, so I've just added our 4-wire O2 to our Obd1 harness. Let me walk you through what you're gonna have to do. So here's your 4-wire O2. Have the Obd1 plug that it plugs into on hand. As I previously mentioned, this yellow black wire is going straight to the resistor box full of all the other yellow black wires. This green and white wire is a ground. This can be grounded at your ECU ground on the harness, so extend this. So this green and white wire is a ground. Best place to ground this is your ECU ground. So I'm going to keep splitting open this harness, and that ground will eventually be added here. Next is you're gonna have either this gray sleeved wire, but it's actually white inside. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's actually a white wire inside. This wire is actually, this is actually your O2 sensor. Like this is the signal for the O2 sensor. It's this wire right here. And this wire can be ran directly to your primary O2, which is going to be pinned on connector D, to be pinned into D14. This is connector D, and pin 14 is that white wire down there. It goes in 2s at the bottom, so the first red wire is 2, 4, 6, blank, 8, 10 on the red, 12 blank, and then 14 is the white wire. So D14 will connect directly to your O2 sensor signal. And then wire is going to be your power O2 sensor heater switch. Basically, this needs to be plugged into 12 volt switch power. The O2 sensor heater, which is pin number A6. So connector A246, that blue wire right there is A6. That is where you can plug this orange and black wire directly to. Okay, and that pretty much wraps up wiring the 4-wire into the harness. The only reason I haven't wired everything is because these 2 wires are going to be hardwired into the ECU, meaning we won't be able to just unplug the harness and pull it out of the car anymore. So I'm going to do all of that wiring after our swap is complete. And then as for the ground, I already told you guys I'm going to run that through the harness to the original ECU ground. And that pretty much wraps up converting your Obd1 harness to Obd1 for the d16z6. The only other things you guys might want to do is change out your alternator plugs for Obd1 alternator, if that's what you guys are going to be running. And the next thing I'm going to be doing is actually changing out our distributor plugs. We're going to be running the Obd1 distributor with the Obd1 plugs. We have a jumper harness, but it is not reliable and we do not trust it. So, all right guys, meanwhile, while we've been doing all of that wiring stuff, Leo pretty much has our $20 engine ready to drop out. We're probably going to end the night by dropping this guy out of the car. And I'm probably not going to get to my Dizzy wiring or any of that until tomorrow. But this is basically what the workstation looks like. This is the spaghetti that remains from my Obd1 harness. Still going to cut out some more stuff from that. And this guy is our Obd1 harness converted for the Z6. It's pretty cool how this ended up working out. But we're going to button that guy up. We're going to drop this guy out. And then the goal is to start tomorrow off with an empty engine bay and a plug and play motor. All right, you guys. Got the junkyard motor pulled out. It's not even a junkyard motor. I keep calling it that. Got the $20 motor pulled out. Made a little bit of a mess. But we only took like, I don't know, 5 minutes to pull this thing out. We're getting way faster at this. So Z6 is getting ready, but I think we're going to start wrapping it up. I'm probably going to keep filming wiring harness stuff and get the wiring harness 100% finished. But for today, I think we're going to wrap it up here and we'll get back to work in the daytime. What's going on, you guys? It is a new day and Denny's. But anywho, before we take our breakfast break, let me walk you all around what has been going down. So I finished up the entire wiring harness. Right now I'm just cleaning everything up. 4-wire O2 sensor. I have our white wire, which is O2 signal. That's going to our regular O2 wire, the 1 wire. Our yellow and black wire is going to that resistor box, the Obd1 resistor plug that I added. The orange and black wire needs to be pinned into the blue wire on our jumper harness. And then the green wire, the green and black stripe wire, is actually a ground. Okay, so I wanted to walk you guys through this because I actually realized something. I was originally going to implement the 4-wire O2 sensor into the wiring harness, but then I went and looked at my jumper. This is something that you guys are going to need to do. Check out your jumper harness because I didn't realize this last night, but my O2 sensor, my primary O2 sensor, is not pinned into the normal harness, meaning we cannot use the old wire from the Obd1 harness. It's not going to go anywhere. So primary O2 is going to be your white wire, and then O2 sensor heater is this wire over here. That O2 sensor heater is going to connect to this orange and black wire, and then the white wire that I connected to the Obd1 harness, I'm going to have to disconnect that, and that's going to have to also be connected to the jumper harness on the ECU. Other than that, you're gonna have a yellow and black wire. That got ran all the way over here to our little resistor plug. And then the green and black wire is a ground, which I have actually grounded to the thermostat housing. Then I depinned and repinned the the distributor plugs. So we now have Obd1 distributor plugs on an Obdo harness. As you can see, still Obdo. And then I already walked you guys through the entire wiring for the resistor plug yesterday. And aside from that, I went through all of our sensors on our Obd1 manifold, and I made sure that all of our Obd plugs plugged in. Fuel injectors are all good to go, and ultimately everything wiring wise is good to go. We're still retaining our Obd alternator plugs because we're still running an Obd alternator. And aside from that, I also switched over our thermostat or our water temp sensor. Engine coolant temp sensor is now Obd1 because we are no longer running the sensor on the back of the block, as you can see. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So from this point forward, I'm gonna wrap up the harness with all of the stock little, I don't know, protection tubies, whatever they're called. I'm gonna wrap up the harness. I'm gonna get it covered in electric tape and all good to go. And then we are gonna move this underneath the CRX, mate it to the tranny, drop the CRX on it, hook up the side mounts, pick it all up, and we should be good to go at that point. As for the actual swap itself, you're gonna need to remove the post mount, and you're gonna need to replace it with your EF post mount. Do not remove the crank pulley and replace it. The EF crank pulley will probably be smaller, and you'll probably have the 2-rib. Run the 3-rib if that's what you have, because the OEM crank pulley is balanced to the OEM Z6 crank. It's not balanced to the A6 crank or whatever crank you might have. So run the Z6 pulley. I don't really mess with the aftermarket stuff. OEM is balanced to the crank, and you want your rotating assembly to stay balanced. We are running an Obd1 manifold. We are running mainly all Obd1 sensors. The only Obd0 stuff we are still running is going to basically only be the alternator. And that's it. Engine is completely Obd1. Wiring harness is still going to be Obdo with deleted resistor box. And yeah, that should be good to go. In the future though, I do want to try to get some little 1-wire plugs and make this harness completely detachable the way it was stock. But because as I walked you guys through, we are going to have 3 or 4 wires that need to be hardwired into the ECU. But that's okay. We're actually going to have, I believe we're going to have 4 wires hardwired. We're going to have our primary O2 signal. We're going to have our heater ground. And then we're going to have our two VTEC wires, VTEC solenoid and VTEC oil pressure. But yeah. I'm just talking. Leo's in the bathroom inside, so I'm kind of just posted up waiting. We have been on a journey with this car for sure. Let's get it wrapped up today. So this is the old oxygen sensor. This is the single wire for the oxygen sensor. It's this top plug, or it's this top wire on the plug. I just depinned it. And now we can discard that. Record. All right, you guys. My harness is finished. All I need to do is add the VTEC sub harness and finish wiring the O2 sensor, but those need to be hardwired, so we're gonna wait until we get the swap in the car. For now, let me walk you guys through what we got. So starting off right here, we have Obd1 plugs. I extended our temp and oil pressure sensors. And then when we go around and trace the harness all the way back up to the shock tower, we have our Obd plugs. That goes into the firewall. This is for the starter. We have our ground with all of our new grounds added to it. We have our water temp. I actually had to switch out this plug for an Obd1 plug only because the Obdo plug was destroyed. This one is the same plug, just a different color. And then we go up here. We still have a couple Obd1 plugs. Focus. We still have a couple Obd1 plugs. That sensor is broken. We will replace that. And then going up to the fuel injectors, this is how I tuck them. As you can see, the wiring is all tucked behind the fuel rail, because I was just explaining it to Leo. When I do engine tucks for customer cars, I usually really only get hired to do tucks on B series. So that's where my experience is. The intake manifold is a lot bigger on B series, and I usually like to wrap these wires around like semi-tight to where there's tension, and they actually kind of tuck themselves behind the fuel rail. I attempted to do that with the D16, but I wasn't really familiar with the wire lengths, so this is what we got. Either way, I'm still pretty happy with it. And then this wire, or this bunch of wires right here, is our Obd1 shock tower plug with our Obd1 resistor box. It's not a resistor box, it's a plug, and we're still running Obd1 alternator, Obd1 oil water temp, and then all of our Obd1 plugs plug into our Obd1 manifold. And that's pretty much going to wrap it up, guys. And then we're going to add our VTEC plugs, and that'll be it. That'll complete the wiring for this car. Next step is focus. Next step is that goes into that, but first we're going to walk to AutoZone. Somebody took 2 of them.
I'm gonna send a picture to the guy right now. I'm like, hey, and by the way, this is how you install that on the C6, okay? It's just an FYI. Look at that. Full coverage.
Huh. So that's on the P28? Well, you guys, it has been a very long night. It has been about 2 days since we got home. First day, we didn't really do anything. We were kind of resting. Took us 1 day to tear down the car. Took us another day to get the whole swap put in. And then today we were just chasing issues all day. We finally got it to fire up, but we are throwing a crank position code for crankshaft position sensor, which is inside of the Dizzy. I depinned and repinned this plug like 50 times. I'm gonna walk you guys through this stuff in the daytime, but I depinned and repinned that plug in probably every single possible combination there is. There is a lot of garbage on the internet in terms of Obd1 conversions, mainly with that plug. There's so many wiring diagrams, there's so many like graphs that people have made, and literally none of them are correct. All you do is match up the wires, like blue solid matches to blue solid, blue stripe, orange to orange, yellow to yellow, peach to orange, because peach is just faded orange. But we're still having issues. I'm almost positive that my wiring is correct. Like, obviously the car fires up. The crank position sensor inside of the Dizzy might be the problem. Tomorrow we're gonna dive into that. But just a quick update for you guys. The car is running, the swap is finally finished. It took a freaking week to do this, but we did it. We're 90% of the way, we're there, guys. And we'll see you guys next time.